sports. I will be brutally honest. Ain't nothing but being brutally honest. Coming at you with another video.
What's up, everybody? Let's welcome my special guest from KMBR, Dieter Kurtenbach. Man, what is going on, my guy?
What's up, CG? How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing so well, man. I'm just so pumped about the offseason where I'm looking at your content. You're doing some draft talks and all that other stuff.
Yeah, well, I can't believe that you're excited about this offseason. They have given you nothing to be excited about right now, man.
There's nowhere to go but up, like they say.
I guess they're trying to find the bottom first, though, because I can understand letting a lot of these guys leave. I think each of their decisions in a vacuum, totally justifiable. But the problem with letting people leave is you got to bring somebody in to replace them. And I'm wondering when the hell they're going to get around to doing that. It might not be until the draft, which, if that's the case, put a bow on 2025. Let's start thinking about 26.
Oh, so do you really think it's more of a rebuild, or you think it's more of like a retool, kind of a reset, or what?
I mean, it's clearly a reset because they're not trading everybody and anybody, right? Like they got rid of Debo. That's a justifiable decision. Debo was not good this past year. But until they, drop the quarterback, until they trade Christian McCaffrey or George Kittle or Fred or Nick Bosa, like until they trade one of those really top tier guys who is producing at a top tier level, you can't really call it a rebuild because they haven't torn it down to the studs.
That's what I said.
Reset, but it's a reset. But man, I mean, it's a pretty harsh reset. I mean, we're losing our save file on this one for sure.
Oh yeah, like a reset. You mean like one of those resets where you just restore or whatever that stuff is, but it's not like you're completely tearing it down yet. So just for those Niner fans who are just overreacting, man, I just kind of look at it and say, hey, it's not like we got rid of some of our other core players, man.
Totally. Again, it comes back to, like, I got no problem with Dre Greenlaw leaving. I would not have given him the contract, but you have to take the money and put it somewhere else. And the Joey Bosa situation, again, you can say, oh, well, you shouldn't give Joey Bosa $12.5 million because he's not worth it and he can't play. You need a defensive end. You cut Leonard Floyd, justifiable in and of itself. You need a defensive end. You need a starting defensive end. And you want Joey Bosa. He would fit what you need, which is someone who's going to set an edge on the outside and give Nick room to work as a pass rusher. And they're willing to spend $10 million on him, but they're not willing to spend another $2.5 million to get the guy that they want. Okay, but they got nothing now. So if they're going to be stingy and prudent and stand on their principles of, no, we're not going to overpay, they need to have a better understanding of what the free agent market looks like, because everybody's getting overpaid. It's not an overpay if everyone's overpaid. That's just the cost of doing business.
Yeah, it is. Like, I mean, what was the point of cutting Leonard Floyd? Did they really think they were going to get Bosa? That was the kind of indication.
I mean, that would be logical, and I can't tell you firsthand that that's what they thought was happening. If they did think that was happening, then they are not good at what they do. I'm not willing to go that far, because this is a team that played in 3 straight NFC championship games. There's clearly some competence in the organization. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are no idiots. But
yeah, they're not.
But whatever's going on here is either they are obfuscating the plan that they have, which is to tear this thing down, take a big L for the season, and come back for 26 stronger, fresher, younger, cheaper, or they're doing a really, really bad job in managing the current free agent market, managing their roster, and getting this team competitive for 2025. I don't see a way that you can make an argument that this team that they currently have, and I know that there's a long way to go before this team is finalized, but how could they possibly be better? The idea that this is a team that was stars and scrubs for years and years and years, and they got away with it for a couple of them. And then last year, some of their stars get injured, and you're left with scrubs, and you win 6 games, even with some stars still in there. They don't have a middle class of player because they drafted so poorly for so long, in addition to not having first-round picks because they decided that Trey Lance was worth 3 of them, which I'll take an L on that one too. Like, I didn't agree with the trade, but when they had the number 3 overall pick, I said take Lance. Couldn't be more wrong about that.
Yeah,
Those
I could be wrong about it too.
But the Niners have clearly had it in their mind that that's what they should do. They're the ones who made the trade. They're the ones who took Trey Lance. I was only wrong about half of it. So
I mean, yeah, we took that L from there, but then we traded him to the Cowboys for that 4th-round pick, which turned out to be a good pick at the end of the day.
Totally, but like that doesn't justify you lost. You would not trade Malik Mustafa, as great as he has been. You wouldn't trade. You would get, if someone would give you 3 first-round picks for Malik Mustafa. It's been nice knowing you, Malik. Like, of course you take the 3 picks. So the idea that, it kind of all worked out, like, yeah, they salvaged a little bit, but just because you can pay off a little bit of your debt doesn't mean you still don't have a giant hole in the red and that the bill collectors ain't calling you.
Still got to pay for it. It's like that budget, like, like that credit card, man. You're putting too much money into it, and it's going to start to, like, like that decline thing where it's just
totally. I mean, they are getting killed by the APR right now, which is, I think, Jed York's argument, which is why he stepped in now in recent weeks and said, like, hey, we're going to put a curtail on a lot of this spending, and we're going to be rolling over some money year over year, which is something that he did after the Niners went to the Super Bowl in 12. They rolled over a lot of money year over year for no good reason, to be frank. They just didn't want to spend all that much. And they let, Jed, to his credit, stepped out of the way, let Kyle and John do their thing. They figured out where their relationship was, who did what. That's melded a little bit over the years. Kyle still has all the say, but he's given John more and more and more. And ultimately, we get to the point where, okay, they did do some very bad things in free agency in recent years. They've had some bad luck. They've made some bad signings. The Leonard Floyd signing, on the record, awful when it was made. I know he had 8.5 sacks last year. I defy anyone to tell me about any of them. I don't remember any of them. They were so unimportant in a season that proved generally unimportant.
More like coverage sacks of anything else.
100%. You don't need to pay $10 million for a cleanup guy. That's what your draft picks are supposed to be for. But when you don't have any good draft picks because you draft Robert Beal and Drake Jackson, well, now you're paying $10 million. And this is the credit card analogy again. Jed York looked at the credit card statement, and he's like, they have been spending my money like it's not their money, and this is my money. And now I'm gonna put I'm gonna put a curtail on it. I'm gonna stop this now.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of that spoiled little rich girl that kind of gets a lot of from the parents, all that spending, and they eventually get tired of that spending. And I said, okay, you might need to take a break on that.
Get it? And again, that's a totally justifiable stance for Jed York to take. But the problem is that the one way to properly restructure this team so that it is more insulated from years like last year where their stars got injured and then, hey, we didn't have anybody there, is you need to spend a little bit on mid-tier free agents. You need to bolster that middle in the short term so that with a couple of drafts, you can replenish it from there. But you need to have solid veterans on reasonable deals. And the 49ers stance on reasonable is vastly different than everybody else's stance on reasonable right now. It's pretty clear that Jed York came in, put a lot of financial restrictions on the front office, and that those restrictions might better apply to 2021 or 2022 than they do to 2025 when you get a $25 million boost in the salary cap year over year, and you're getting situations like Aaron Banks, who was terrible last year, getting $77 million. Like, you can't tell me that the market is incorrect when the market is consistent. That's just you being cheap and passing it off as fiscal prudence.
Yeah, but Aaron Banks, just kind of like how you look at Lincoln Tomlinson like a while back. When we drafted Aaron Banks, he eventually took over, and we didn't quite miss a beat with Tomlinson. But
and that'd be great, but who the hell is that going to be? Who the hell is that left guard?
That's the question. I think we've seen a little bit of glimpse of Ben Barch a little bit. So
I mean, I love Ben Barch. The fact that Ben Barch is somebody that we're talking about right now tells you how bad Aaron Banks was this past year. That we're like, wow, Ben Barch, he could really do something. I mean, Ben Barch was the big inactive for like 3 straight years. They couldn't play him. He comes in, he looks good. I got no problem with starting Ben Barch at left guard, but that's not what we're talking about when we're saying, hey, we got a bunch of young guys that can come in and take these jobs. When you talk about the Steelers, when you talk about the Chiefs, when you talk about, I mean, even to a certain effect, the Eagles, though they did it in a more extreme way. These are teams that stay consistently good even when they let free agents leave because they draft really well and they always have somebody waiting in the wings. There's nobody waiting in the wings on this 49ers team. There's nobody who's like, oh, when this guy goes, then we'll give this guy his chance. Anybody who could have gotten a chance has already gotten their chance. Those guys are now the established starters. Mustafa, Pearsall, Garendo as the number 2 back. All those guys got run last year. So they know who those guys are starters. Those are young starters on top of the old starters, and there's nobody underneath them. And I know they got 11 picks in the draft, but like 189, 223, 232, 255, like that's not going to, those are guys who might not make the roster. So the idea that that's going to be enough to rebuild your team, you still need 7 starters on this roster. You got to go out and sign some dudes. And I know that they're all costing 20% more than you thought, but at least it's consistent and you can't be cheap when you are in this circumstance. So either bottom out all the way and start trading some dudes that are established, or start buying some dudes on a marketplace that you don't want to be shopping in. But you can't put together a recipe to make dinner, go to the grocery store and say, well, we're not going to get any of that stuff. It's too expensive. No, you're in, man. You already agreed to make the lasagna. You got to buy the cheese. You got to buy the pasta. You got to buy the meat.
You got to buy
all these things.
Or there's no point.
Or what are we doing? Or what are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing? You got to have some of that stuff.
I got no problem at all with the Niners. If they want to just come out and say, hey, we're doing a full reset, I'll say, yep, got to take your medicine. Totally get it. Yeah, it's probably the smart decision. But you have to be forthright and say it. And up until free agency started, maybe I'm the idiot. Wouldn't be the first time. But I was under the impression that they were going to try. And what I'm seeing now is that they're not trying. And I think that the reason that a lot of 49ers fans, at least that I'm running into, are pissed off is, okay, well, they're not trying. They're clearly not trying to win games. But they haven't come out and said that. And so the expectations for the San Francisco 49ers are still Super Bowl or bust. And they will always be Super Bowl or bust unless they are reestablished accordingly, unless somebody comes out and says, hey, this is not going to be our year. You got to expect it to be at the highest level. It clearly will not be able to reach the highest level this year. So I would be angry too if I was a Niners fan, because they're selling you a false bill of goods right now. Come out, be honest about it. Say, we're playing for 26. We got to take our medicine. It's going to be a bitter pill. Stick with us. We're going to stick with Kyle. We're going to stick with John. Because I'll tell you what happens if Jed doesn't come out, or if somebody doesn't come out and say, hey, we're going to take it on the chin this year. They're going to, the fan base, and they're right to do this, they are going to take it out on Kyle and John. Right? You cannot go 6 wins, 5 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins, back-to-back years, and not expect the GM and the head coach to take serious heat week in and week out, unless the owner or those 2 guys come out and say, hey, we got a mandate. We got to take it on the chin this year. It's all about next year. Unless they shift the perception. And right now the perception is very much still, unless you're really paying attention, expectation is still, yeah, no, we're going to compete. Last year was the down year. We're coming back. But how are they going to do that? They only have like 30 dudes on their roster.
Yeah, they got mostly a lot of the younger guys, and they're only bringing in some veterans on a cheaper deal. So it's not like we're committed to them long term. So, I do like this question by Butterfly. Do you think the high paying contracts are making these players not putting in their all? I mean, I've seen some players kind of perform like never been the same.
I mean, I don't think it's the contracts. I think it's the fact that when you're a high paid player, you got some cachet in the league, right? You've been around for a minute or two. And when you've been around for a minute or two in the NFL, you've taken a hit or two. Like, I don't think Deebo Samuel's 2024, which let's be sucked. I don't think that had anything to do with him not trying. I think it had everything. I think he was trying his ass off. I just don't think that his ass could get to where it wanted to go anymore because he's been a professional football player for 6-7 years and he plays harder than anybody. And at a certain point, you can't get back to what you were at when you were 21 years old. He's here for a good time, not for a long time.
I mean, he was just used in a lot of different ways, and I think that's where it takes a toll on his body. So it's like you're asking him to play a little bit of running back and then mostly playing receiver, but he's not quite a route runner. So
yeah, to say the least.
Yeah, I can see why his production slipped because when you treat him like a running back, yeah, you're going to have a lot of toll on your body, of course, because they get most touches.
And 28 years old is when most running backs completely fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
And even the guys who, they're so good at 30, 31, like Derrick Henry is an outlier. Like Derrick Henry's built like a defensive tackle. So I'm not going to hold him up as a running back.
He's a gigantic player. Yeah. He's like built like a linebacker for sure. But like
everybody else, they get to 28 years old and it's just, Deebo Samuel's been used like a running back. You get to 28 years old. Guess what? Crash. Now I'll say this. I can see maybe a little bit of what Washington likes in Deebo in that Jaden Daniels is a running quarterback. Like they have designed runs, which is different than Brock, who's a scrambling quarterback who just takes it if the defense gives it to him. Jaden Daniels is going out there and like 1, 2, I'm gone. It's sometimes built into the play. That's going to force a lot of zone looks from opposing defenses because they got to keep eyes on him. And Deebo is a menace against zone. The issues that Deebo ran into as a receiver is you could press man-to-man him, and he couldn't separate worth a damn. And this past year, everybody did it because the Chiefs did it in the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, and they're like, after the first drive when the Niners were killing them, but then McCaffrey fumbled, the Chiefs and Spagnuolo's like, oh, we just got to go press man-to-man every snap. Like, go to plan B, and that's press man-to-man. And Deebo was non-existent. And when he becomes non-existent, that offense takes serious steps back. They couldn't beat man-to-man all year until Ricky Pearsall came in and was snapping off routes. And that took a couple of weeks for him to get to where he needed to be. That is going to be an issue on any team with Deebo Samuel, is that he can only win against zone. But Washington should see a ton of zone because they got a great quarterback who forces teams to play that.
Yeah. That's probably what's going to happen, but I think you're not going to get the similar production of what you got from 2021, but he'll at least make Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels a better team all around. So
maybe, I mean, it also might just be so much wear and tear that he never gets back to where he is. Like that has to be considered as well. And I don't think that the Commanders are too concerned about it either way. It either works out gangbusters or not. They gave up a 5th round pick for him. Like, what do they?
Yeah, that 5th round pick, who knows? That might be our next draft gem. Who knows?
Yeah, but I don't like that line of thinking, if I'm being honest, in that, that pick might end up being the one. Like,
I wouldn't say that. But
no, I get what you're saying, though. Like, my frustration is that even the best drafting teams get it right, like, 40, 50% of the time? Like, yeah, they do. It's a crapshoot, man. And the idea that the Niners are putting all of their eggs in the 2025 NFL draft basket, like, it's a good draft. I like a lot of them. They got a lot of good picks. They got a lot of capital. If they nail it, like last year, they nailed it. They got 4 good players. They picked like 9 times. So, like, even if they nail it again, that's 4 or 5 good players. And those are rookies who can't even be expected to perform early. They only have, 1 first-round pick. Those are the guys you expect to start week 1. They got 43, 75, 100. Those are guys you can expect to have a role on the team. Everybody else, it's like, good luck if you make it, man. And the idea that those are going to be the guys who replace Charvarius Ward and Dre Greenlaw and, Talanoa Hufanga and Aaron Banks for whatever that's worth, or Kyle Juszczyk or Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, like the fact that those you're going to go to the draft to replace them, like you can't be replacing. You can't go out here and replace Leonard Floyd as bad as he was with pick 139 and expect that to work out for you. You just can't. You can do it if you had a bunch of first round picks, a bunch of second round picks. Like, yeah, if you're a good drafter, you're going to get some dudes that can contribute right away. But when you're drafting on day 3, you're not getting first day contributors. You're hoping you get a player that might turn into
develop nicely.
Yeah, exactly.
Like usually those day 3 are the ones you take upsides or take risk on. because
or you go get the guy who has very little upside, but was like a super producer in college, like a Jawan Jennings. You're like, I don't get it, but all he does is win, so we'll take
yeah,
him.
yeah,
You
and then
take the production or you take the upside. Like, there's a reason they're available on the third day. If they were a sure thing that everyone knew was going to be good in the NFL on day one or even day two, they wouldn't be there for you.
yeah, they wouldn't be there. But there's other factors, like you said, like you take flyers like guys like Jawan Jennings, but like you look at guys like Dre Greenlaw, he went into the 5th round with potential. They didn't. He was like a guy that everybody said he was undersized and all that stuff. So
He was a safety in college, and I mean, and it still took him 2 years, right? It's still, and maybe this is where they're at with D Winters. They feel like he can make the jump as well. I just feel like that's a big stretch. Like, I'm not the biggest D Winters guy. I can see why they like him. Like, don't get me, like, he flies, but
just missing the tackles a little bit.
I mean, I said on KMBR yesterday, he goes there. I guess it was Monday. Like, he's never used his arms to tackle once. Every single time he's tackling, he's going in the window like Ralph Wiggum in the meme. Like, he's just diving in. And if you have any control of your body or pace, like, you're going to miss him. I'm not saying that he needs to, go full 1950s form tackle. I understand the hit stick is something in the modern NFL, right? These guys are flying. You don't have time to square them up all the time. But you can't also just be face planting into every tackle and expect to bring anyone to the ground. So, I mean, I'm sure that's something they can work on with him. But the fact is, we haven't seen it. He had all year last year to take
work
that
on
job.
those. Yeah.
Right? There was no point in which I know he had some injuries and stuff, but like, there was no point in which you're thinking to yourself, oh man, Devondre Campbell's kicking ass. Good thing, like, no, D Winters could have taken that job week 1. And he didn't. And Devondre Campbell was terrible in training camp. He was terrible week 1. He was terrible week 2. He was terrible throughout the year. He had a couple of okay games, and then he quit. And so the idea that D Winters is good enough to now take over full time, like, he wasn't good enough to beat out Devondre Campbell last year. What are we expecting him to do year over year so that he can replace Dre Greenlaw? That's a little bit of a different scale. And he, again, couldn't beat out Devondre Campbell, who was awful last year, who's not going to get a new contract. So I'm a bit flummoxed as to what the plan is, if the plan is not to bottom out and play for 2026.
Yeah, we're just going to have to play with who we got, but we're going to have to build on. Like you said, maybe this is like the year we have to go into 2026 with a different kind of core instead. But,
Totally.
I think we look at it this year, 2025, this seems like house money year. Like, if we make the playoffs, that's a bonus. That would be a bonus. Yeah.
And I mean, the Rams are going to be cited a lot, and I think rightly so, as the example as to what the Niners should be doing. Now, mind you, the Rams had a Super Bowl in their trophy case. So a little bit easier to take your medicine. But the Rams I think they won 5 games in 2023, maybe it was 22. And then they bottomed out for 23. They made the playoffs that year. They still won 10 games and made the playoffs in their quote unquote bottom out year. And they played really well late in the season. That's kind of what we're talking about on best case scenario. That's if you do what the Rams did, which is nail the draft at a level like I can't even fathom. I mean, they got like Russ Yeast in the 6th round, and he's out there as like a starting safety. And halfway through the season, you're like, damn, is this guy good? Like, that's all of your draft picks on one side of the ball, like, just absolutely hitting to perfection.
And it makes them so comfortable to the point where they could just move on with Cooper Kupp because they found Puka Nacua as the guy, bro.
Kyron Williams in the 5th round. I mean, no one's drafted better than the Rams, and it helped them win a Super Bowl, and it helped them take it on the chin. They take it on the chin for a year, and the next year, even though they're saying, okay, we got to do a full reset, they go and make the playoffs. But I don't know why anyone should expect, and I hate that this, it's a pretty negative take. I'd like to be a little more optimistic. Nothing's written in stone yet. But the frustrating part is, like, okay, the Niners have been one of the worst drafting teams in the NFL since John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan showed up. Yeah, they got Brock Purdy. They also got Trey Lance. Like, that, we can go down the line, and this is why they only won 6 games last year. And now you're putting all of your chips in the we're going to draft well pile. Like, why would they start
better hit on
drafting
'em.
well all of a sudden?
Yeah, we better hit on those, or else this can be what you said. It could be like a year where we have to wait till 2026.
I mean, and the problem is, I think that even if you hit on all your draft picks, you're still waiting for 26, right? If you hit on all your draft picks, that's for 26, because then the 26 guys come in, and that draft class is then the backups for the guys who hit when in the 25 and 24 classes. Now you're like, okay, you got a little something, you got a little momentum. What if they don't? What if you don't draft well in 25? What if you don't do well in April? Because again, just to be clear, they need, as we talk right now, a starting free safety, maybe a strong safety. Depends on what you think about where Mustafa should play, but they need a starting safety. I still think they need a starting outside corner. Let Lenore play inside. And I know they brought in a dude, but if that guy gets cut halfway through camp, no one would ever notice. Like, it is what it is. They need a starting outside corner. They need a starting weak side linebacker. They need a starting strong side linebacker as well, should be noted. They need 2, if not 3 defensive tackles. They need 2 defensive ends, one of which is a starter. They need a starting either X or Z receiver. They're going to need a fullback unless they want to use the guy that they just got as a fullback and the number 2 tight end. They need a left guard, maybe not. Like, that's a lot of dudes. You're going to get that. You're going to get all of those in one fell swoop. Like, it's just not going to happen. And if you don't do well and get, let's say, half of those starter caliber players on half of those positions in this upcoming draft, well, then where are you? Because now Fred Warner's a year older, Nick Bosa's a year older, and who knows if Trent Williams is going to keep playing, and go down the line. And it's like, this is how you totally bottom out. Is you don't, they have sold out because they didn't draft well for years and years and years. And they have tried to hold up everything with some spending. And now they're like, what if we don't do the spending anymore? Like, dude, if you don't draft well, it all comes crashing down. And if it comes crashing down, that's not a 1-year hit. That's a multiple year hit. And we're talking about a different head coach and a different coordinator, a different GM in the not too distant future if this thing totally bombs out. This is the most important draft since I've been covering the Niners, and that was the final year of Jim Harbaugh. I mean, this thing is, for no good reason, in my opinion, shaping up to be the most vital draft of the last 10 years for the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, it's going to have to be, because this is where Kyle can prove otherwise. Like, you look at how this roster is, we're going from reset mode and taking as much guys off the books. And I know it's a dead cap. You look at $86 million, which is crazy, but, I've seen.
I'll take some dead cap.
Yeah, take that dead cap out the way, I guess.
If they want to throw some of that dead cap money my way, I'll take it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you'll take it. I'm pretty sure you and all the other guys would. I
think we could all split it up. That's a lot of dead cap money.
It's a lot of dead cap money. But I see that you're kind of too big on the draft. But who do you feel like the Niners should get in the first round? Just an 11 pick? Do they even just stay at that spot, or trade down, or move up?
The optimal thing to do is to move down so that you can move up in rounds 2 and 3. The problem that I'm running into is when I talk to people about that, they're saying, oh yeah, this other team wants to do that too, and this other team wants to do that too. It seems as if no one actually wants to be at the pick that they're at, because now everybody's gone full Moneyball, and they understand that the draft is a crapshoot, and they just want as many bites of the apple as possible. Going back to the Rams didn't draft in the first round forever, but what they did do is have a ton of bites and a really good system for scouting. And that's why they kept hitting in middle and late rounds. And they thought that was a more prudent way of going about their business. Take first round picks, the guys that you expect to start week 1, and turn them into actual NFL players by trading them. And then get everybody else who are just going to be crapshoots and be really good at it. That's the first. It's easy to do when you're good at it, but get as many shots at those guys as possible. That's the Belichick model back with the Patriots. That was the Rams model. And now I think everybody in the NFL that has any sense of where the league is going is trying to do the same thing. So I'm not sure the Niners can move down significantly enough to where they can move up in the second and the third rounds to get themselves in better position to kind of get a couple of bites at week 1 starters. So at 11, I think that, it depends on who's there. That's the most obvious statement known to man. If it's Mason Graham and he falls, which I'm hearing every day, it's more and more likely, you just do it. It's not sexy. It's not fun, but he's the highest floor player in this draft. You know he can start week 1 at a position that you need a starter. Alternatively, I would say, Armand Membu, if he's still there, because there's a lot of buzz around him at 4 right now. If he's still there, that's the way you go, because you can start him at left guard and you can move him over to left tackle. You get kind of, 2 birds, 1 stone with that one. But I think Walter Nolan, if I'm being, if you had to plant a flag and say this is the guy, which is, by the way, something the Niners are going to have to do consistently, and I think did a good job of last year, not caring about value, not caring about what people would say on the outside, saying this is our guy. Even if we're taking him around too early, we're taking him. And that worked out, I think, with Pearsall. It worked out with Renardo Green. It worked out with Isaac Garendo. It worked out for a bunch of guys. I mean, certainly Pooney, who was supposed to be a 5th or a 6th round pick, they take him in the 3rd, worked out because they had conviction. That's all that matters. You got to trust your process and your guys. You can't fall into a player and expect them to be successful. You got to believe they're going to be successful and take them, because who gives a damn about the outside noise?
No, as long as he produces, as long as he's a good player, as long as he lives up. I mean,
but that's the same for every player, right? Like every player has that same threshold. There's no player that comes, you draft and you go like, well, it doesn't matter if they suck. No, because it could always be a player that would have been good in that spot. So if I had to plant the flag, if they called me up and they said, Dieter, who you taking at 11? And I go, given the circumstances of what I think will go down and how the draft will play out, where Membu and Graham are off the board, I would go with Walter Nolan. I think he's exactly what they want in a 3 technique. People will say you're reaching. I say, fine. He's what this team needs. And they need a lot more than that. But dude, he's good against the run. He's good against the pass. He fires. He's crazy athletic. He was the best defensive lineman on the best defensive line in college football, in my opinion. No offense to Texas A&M. Like, he's a dude. He's a dog. And I know there's some red flags on the personal side. I can't speak to any of that. I don't know about any of that, so I'm going to ignore it for now. If I find out something, I'll speak up about it. But I think it's probably 7, 8, 10 picks too early. I'd still take him. I'd just take him, because you have to feel confident that that's your guy, and it doesn't matter what the number is next to the name. All that matters is if they produce, and you don't get bonus points for grabbing an extra 6th round pick you don't get points for making more trades. You get players. So get the player.
Right, get the player who would fit into the system and all that stuff. But if I were to get Walter Nolan, maybe in the 2nd round, I go get I get the edge rusher, that one that played at the same college. I mean, maybe I might just go with all these old Miss players, man. I get the linebacker. Heck, I get the other D tackle.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that was the best team money could buy this past year. What I wouldn't do is get the quarterback in Jackson Dart, man, because that old Miss team had NFL caliber talent at every single level. I mean, maybe their offensive line was a little, but every other level, it's like, dude, these are all. I would go with the corner, Trey Amos, in the 2nd. But
or even just Princely, whatever his name is, that guy,
Ian or whatever.
Then JJ McGee's another good one. I think JJ McGee you can get either the 3rd or 4th round, if I'm mistaken.
Yeah, so I would have and I wrote that in a mock draft recently. Like, I'd go to Ole Miss as often as possible. How do the Eagles get to the Super Bowl? They just kept going to Georgia
players. Yeah,
I would do the same thing. I would just go Oxford, Mississippi, baby. Hey, Lane Kiffin, we're hanging out.
Players they got. Take all the players on defense they got to offer.
I'll
even
take
Chris Paul.
Offensive players too. They got great wide receivers, great running backs. I'd take them all.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, even Georgia, even some of their pass rushers this year is pretty interesting. But I think McCall will probably be gone by then.
We'll see. And he's a tricky one because it is not. He's not a sexy player, and there is still some expectation, probably wrongly, of flash when you're picking at 11. It's hard to go with the safe pick, which is kind of why I think Graham is going to fall to 11, is that there's not a lot of flash in his game, and at some point, teams get blinded by upside. It's why they take crappy quarterbacks in the top 10 picks, because it's like, oh, what could he be? It's like, yeah, but what is he? I can appreciate there's some projection on all these guys, but you can't just only handle the best case scenario. You got to handle the middle and the bottom. I think with Nolan, there's a very high floor, but a really high upside. I think he has a higher upside than Graham. The problem is that Graham comes in and is immediately kind of like Braden Fisk last year, just like a really positive defensive tackle who plays competent football. And you're never going to go wrong at 11 taking a dude who's just going to start for you for the next 7 years.
Yeah, he would probably be the obvious choice. But if you were to go with another upside or somebody with potential, maybe like somebody like Jalen Walker who can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I mean, and that would be really. I mean, by then I would hope that certainly I think they're obligated, but I would hope that John and Kyle will have already done a press conference where they're like they can tell us what the damn plan is and just say like, yeah, we're going to take it on the chin this year, this and that. And if that's the case, then just go for the upside, guys. If you're punting 25 and 25 is just a strict developmental year, then go get the guys with the highest upside and trust your coaches to get it done. And that's when I would go with the Jalen Walker, because I mean, my God, if it hits, that's perennial all pro, right? Like that's the kind of talent. Yeah. Problem is he might never get an NFL sack because I don't know if he knows what he's doing out there. So man, if I knew all the answers, they'd be paying me a hell of a lot more. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, like you and Larry would probably make some millions of dollars, man.
And yet here we are, not.
Yeah, here we are. But hey, man, I know you got some stuff to do later on, man, and I definitely appreciate you on the show, man. Maybe we can catch up on. Yeah, that we can definitely catch up another time. But yeah, for those people, tell everybody where they can find your social media platform.
Yeah. I'm on Twitter at Dieter, Dieter. Shit posting over there. So enjoy the show. And then Dieter and Hutch podcast on YouTube at Dieter Hutch.
Yeah, go check out his show. I've watched their mock drafts and all the other stuff for their little breakdown top players they like.
Yeah.
I like your content, man.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, anytime.